Good morning. I hope you guys have been doing well. So in the previous video, I quickly mentioned Cyrus, but it wasn't completed. So if you had a look at that, you would have seen a 2026 and a 2029. And I apologize, I shouldn't have posted it, but I had a look at it now. I did some more research on it. And what I found blew me away. It is absolutely amazing to see the similarities between the time of King Cyrus and the time we are in now. So what we will be looking at quickly before I begin is at the constellations, or the Mazzaroth as it's called in the Bible, and which calendar is correct, because the sun needs to be in the correct constellation. We've got a difference, of course, with the precision of the equinox that has moved us out of synchronicity, but it is still important, and I will show you why. And we will be looking at the Babylonian calendar, the full moon calendar, and the full moon prophetic calendar, or the second Passover calendar, or the Mazzaroth calendar, as I call it. The Babylonian calendar. So over here you can see we've got the 19th of March, and that is when the Jews would have Nisan 1. I've got 12 o'clock in the afternoon here because it's daytime, and you can see the sun is in Adar, or Pisces as it's known today. So clearly it's not in the correct constellation. And this is due, as I said before, due to the precession of the equinox. The Jews begin on the dark moon. That's when the month begins. But the Babylonians, of course, they used the sliver moon. I think the Arabs maybe still do. And that would be 1 or 2 days after that. They would cite the sliver moon, and that would be the beginning of the year. But you can see that this is very, very clearly in the beginning parts of Adar. So not really applicable according to astronomy, although it is correct on the earthly based calendar, which is tied to the equinox, which is Earth. Next we have Nisan 1, according to the full moon calendar, and you can see it's the 2nd of April, and the sun is still clearly in Adar. So also not 100% correct according to the Mazzaroth. Of course, last we will look at the full moon prophetic calendar, as I call it, also the Mazzaroth, or the second Passover calendar, if you will. And you can see that the sun is at the feet of Aries. And this is the 1st of May 2026. This is why the prophetic calendar, or the second Passover calendar, or the Mazzaroth, is very important. Because according to the heavenly signs, or stars, or constellations, it is still in the correct position. And that is why we cannot discount it. And it remains important even today still. So what you see here basically is the previous timeline. This is before I looked at in depth at King Cyrus. And whilst this is still an option, and the critical dates I have over here is 17 May and 6 June. King Cyrus's timeline, you'll see that 17 May is of much more prominence. But why I have this circled here, this is the prophetic calendar, which is correct according to astronomy. It's pointing to the correct sign of the Mazzaroth, or constellation. And I'm not discounting this timeline at all. Although what I found with King Cyrus was very interesting. And it kind of blew me away, actually, to be honest. Because when you find correlations between something that happened 2,500 years ago and today, you really need to pay attention. But like I say, I'm not discounting this timeline. Everything is basically the same. It's just 1,260 days it changed, maybe 1,290 days, etc. And this one focuses on the beginning of the tribulation on 6 June, which is Shavuot. So basically all the believers go up with the Holy Spirit, and which it's basically 2,000 completed years after the Holy Spirit came down. Well, minus the 7 years, of course, but you know what I'm saying. Okay, but before we begin with King Cyrus, I unfortunately have to quickly run through this. We need to know, of course, the dates, and they need to be historically proven. So when was Babylon defeated? Now, this is historically accurate. We have the Nabonidus Chronicle over here, so clay tablets, and on it gives us a date. And the date it gives is the 1st of Tashritu, which is, the 16th of Tashritu, which is the 16th of Tishri, but in their language. And it says there, of course, October 29, now they worked out from that. We only had the date 16 Tishri. And of course, they worked it out on the calendar that they were using, and that is where we got October 29. But Cyrus officially entered the city of Babylon after his forces captured it. It was at this point that he assumed the famous titles of King of Babylon and King of the Four Corners of the World. This is, of course, very similar to the type of language the Antichrist would use after he conquers the world. The specific date of 29 October for Cyrus the Great's entry into Babylon is supported by primary historical evidence from the Nabonidus Chronicle. The Cuneiform tablet written in Akkadian provides a year-by-year account of the reign of Nabonidus, the last king of Babylon. The Chronicle clarifies that the city actually fell on the 12th of October, that's the 16th of Tishri, to the Persian general Gubaru, and Cyrus entered Babylon 17 days later, arriving on the 29th of October. So then I thought, because I always like to confirm to myself, so I thought let's go to 539 BC and see how historically accurate this is. And here you can see 538. Now this is astrological chart, and they use a 0, whereas on the BC there is no 0, it goes directly to -1, so that would be 1 year extra always. So on this you can see that they had the Tishri 1, or the Jews would have their Tishri 1 on September 25, because the Jews began their calendar on the dark moon. So the very day that the moon is dark, they begin their calendar. But the Babylonians, of course, began their calendar on the first sight of the sliver moon. That's why in the Arab nations you always find the sliver moon on their flags. So that would be either 26 or 27 September, 1 or 2 days later. So if you work it out from there, Tishri 1 being on 26 or 27 September, and you count, you have to get, of course, to the 12th of October or the 29th of October. And if you use 27 September 539, then Tishri 16 is the 12th of October. Wonderful. And then 17 days later, Cyrus would enter Babylon, and it's the 29th of October. So historians got it right. This is 100% correct. And I was very happy to see that it is correct, that I didn't need to go look at different years or whatever. And I think it's correct because of the Nabonidus Chronicle. We've actually got physical evidence that was the year. Then I started my investigation, and what I found here was, I found this very interesting. So I thought, how is this applicable to our times? Because we know Daniel, in the book of Daniel, it begins with Daniel under King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. Then under King Belshazzar is when Babylon falls to Cyrus. The Persian king comes and defeats Babylon. And Daniel served under all three of these kings. So he served under 2 Babylonian kings and under the Persian king Cyrus. So, and of course, Daniel's vision is to do with the end time. So if the book of Daniel is applicable to our time today, surely there must be some match up in dates. That was my thinking. So I looked at the year 539 BC and September 25, taking into consideration that the sliver moon would be on September 26 or 27. And I went and I was looking for the dark moon to be on a similar day, because the sliver moon would be 1 or 2 days afterwards. And I looked at September 25, 26, and 27, etc. And the last time the dark moon fell on 25 September, this is what you guys would call the new moon, but I call it a dark moon, was in 2022. And the next time would be in 2041. So definitely 25 September is not applicable in any sort of way to what we have going on. And the last time the dark moon fell on 26 September was in 2003, and the next time is in 2068. So not applicable, because it needs to be 27. Tishri 1 needs to be 27 September. And if the dark moon fell on 26 September, the first sliver possible sighting would be about, say, 12 hours after that, would be 27 September. And you can see that on the dark moon, where they use the new moon as the dark moon or sliver moon, it is not applicable to anywhere today. Because I had a look at all the dates, 10 years back, 10 years forward, etc. But then I thought, well, the real calendar isn't the dark moon calendar, is it? Then I went and I had a look at 2026, and would you believe that on the full moon calendar, this is Tishri 1 would be September 27. We know the Nisan 14 calendar, which is the Earth-based calendar, we have New Moon Day, September 26, and the first day, September 27, is Tishri 1, and that would be September 27. And I thought, this was very interesting. So basically, if you take that similarities, then either in 2026, it would have to be that Babylon falls on the 12th of October 2026 to Persia, and Cyrus the Antichrist will enter Babylon on the 29th of October 2026. But there's definitely a parallel between 539 BC and 2026. Now, I'm not saying that Cyrus enters in 2026. What I am saying is that this is the beginning, or that's what I found out, that this is the beginning of a timeline. Because one point of relevance is not enough. There should be more. One is not enough. I wouldn't have done it if this was all I found, but I found more. Okay, so when did Daniel have his fast or his vision? So here we've got King Cyrus, 539 BC and 2026. And we've already seen that the dates of 12 October and 29 October matches up. But according to the Bible, Daniel had his fast in the third year of King Cyrus's reign, which would make it in April. But I've got an alternative interpretation, that Daniel's vision is concerning the third year of King Cyrus's reign. So he had his fast in this beginning period and his vision, and it was concerning this period over here. But let's see. So in Daniel 10 verse 1 we read, in the third year of Cyrus king of Persia, a thing was revealed unto Daniel. So it sounds as if Daniel had his vision in the third year of King Cyrus's rule, but it could very easily mean that a thing was revealed unto Daniel about King Cyrus's third year. And then the date is given as the 24th day of Nisan. We've seen that year 1 matches up. So looking at year 3, which is 536 BC, we see that they have April the 13th. This is now on the dark moon calendar. That would be Passover. There is Nisan 1, and that is Passover. Then in 2029, which represents year 3 now, we have the full moon calendar, and we have Passover on April the 13th. So it looks like that it is a cycle that's repeating, but from the Babylonian calendar back in 539, superimposed on the times that we are living in today. And then I looked at Cyrus year 7. You can see it's 532 BC, and we've got 2033. And Passover on the Babylonian calendar is April 28th. Passover on the full moon calendar is April 28th. That shows at 29, but that's 2 o'clock in the morning. The full moon calendar only switches over at 6 o'clock in the morning. So it's still April 28th. So we have two identical timelines. The one running the time of Daniel on the Babylonian calendar, that's the calendars the kings used, that's the calendar Daniel would have used. And then we have the full moon calendar running approximately 2,500 years later, but on the correct full moon calendar, identical. And I thought this is very interesting. And also there's a specific starting point, 2026, we have 2029 midpoint, and 2033 endpoint, which is Passover. I thought this was fascinating and too much of a coincidence to just be there. And this is why I really had to share this with you guys. Here we have years 2026 to 2033. And it represents King Cyrus, but on the correct full moon calendar. So you can see 539 BC and 2026 on the full moon calendar. And in both cases, Tishri 1 is 27 September. Babylon falls on 12 October. I have it here as 2026. Cyrus enters Babylon the 29th of October 2026. And then we have the third year of Cyrus's rule, 13 April, which is Passover in both years, both timelines. And 28 April, year 7, 2033. This is 28 April 2033, Passover, and the same in the year 532 BC. So we can see that it is definitely a repeat of the cycle, but in our modern times, and basically just moved from the Babylonian calendar, which is an incorrect calendar, to the full moon calendar, and it is applicable to today, and more specifically applicable to the last 7 years of our time. Okay, and now we will be looking at the timeline. So over here we have the third set of apostle alerts. The first was in December 2025, where we have the 3 feast days that also represented basically the Nisan period, and then the second was in January 2026, and this is the third set, and it is Passover set. But I'm quite pleased with the fact that there's no timelines running from it, apart from the conclusion of the set. So we had 3 apostle alerts ending there, and then we have the conclusion, which is the resurrection, because that is the conclusion of Passover, and from there we have timelines running out. And this is, of course, then the Nisan 14 calendar, and this is the resurrection on Nisan 17. And from there we have 1,290 days running out. In Daniel 12, verse 11, we read, "And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days." Okay, now the daily sacrifice has different interpretations, but this is my interpretation. In the old days, the Israelites needed to do a daily sacrifice in the mornings and the evenings to atone for their daily sins. They had to do this every day to atone for sins. We no longer have to do this today. Why not? The reason for this is because of the sacrifice of Jesus. Jesus atoned for our sins by becoming our daily sacrifice. So when would this have happened? When would he have removed the need for us to do a daily sacrifice? That would have occurred on his resurrection. So from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, this is from the time that Jesus removed the need for us to do a daily sacrifice. And the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. So counting from there 1,290 days, we get to the 29th of October, and that is King Cyrus's third year. And this is what Daniel saw. And I thought this was quite interesting, to be honest. Then 6 days after that, the 3 witnesses are killed. And 3.5 days after that brings us to the 5th of April. Now you might have a question on the 3.5 days here, this time period. I will explain that in the next slide. The 5th of April is the Feast of Tabernacles. And it is very interesting. And it's also quite interesting to see that the 2 witnesses are killed, and it's a 40-day period to get to the time of blessing of a year, which is 1,335 running from the day when Jesus took away the need for us to do a daily sacrifice. That is an anniversary and a symbolic representation of the day that Jesus took away the need, that he became our daily sacrifice. And that's 1,335 days that runs to the day of blessing. Both of these needed to be on the same timeline because they are used in conjunction with one another in the verse. So they need to have the same point of origin. Then one day after that, the 14th of December, is the first of Hanukkah. And this period is a 10-year period that runs from where the abomination of desolation was given. Note that the abomination of desolation is not the mark of the beast. It is just where God leaves the body temple desolate. due to the abomination. The mark of the beast is the second part of it, and if you take that, you will be doomed. And that is 10 years running from that point where the abomination was given on the 14th of December 2020, which is the Feast of Tabernacles on the Mazaroth. And it's the beginning of the 5 months mentioned in Revelation 9, verse 6, where the scorpions will strike people or pain them for 5 months. And that is just referring to the Internet of Bodies, everyone hooked up to the AI, where the AI will be taken over by Satan, and he will basically just send out pain impulses to everyone. And at the end of that period is where the angels that were prepared for 1 year, 1 month, 1 day are released to kill a third of mankind. And it's the same day where Israel turns 82 years old. Previously, I had it in years, 81 years now. Never checked it again, but it's actually 82 years. So we have Nisan 1. And I like how Nisan 1 is May 1, May the 1st. This is now, of course, the heavenly calendar, or the Nisan 13 calendar, the symbolic representation of the physical Passover period, or you can also refer to it as the second Passover calendar. So, and then Daniel begins his fast on May the 4th, and he fasts through to May 24th for 21 days. And at that point in Daniel 10, the angel comes to him and says he was delayed for 21 days, which represents the fast days of Daniel. And then he says he needs to return to continue the fight. And this is also the point where the 2 witnesses begin their testimony. So as the angel returns to earth to continue the fight against the prince of Persia, Cyrus in this case, the 2 witnesses begin their testimony on earth as well to continue the fight. And they fight, of course, until they are killed by the king of Persia. And they resurrect on the 5th of November after that. Then it runs for 1,260 days to the 15th of April. That's Nisan 1. There's a blood moon on the 14th. And this is the Nisan 14 calendar, the earth-based calendar. That's our physical Passover. So Nisan 1 would be New Moon Day plus 1 day. That's the 15th of April. And then from the 29th of October, counting inclusively 3.5 years to the 28th of April. So this is the period, I believe, that our time ends, and this is a period of judgment after that. Fairly interesting timeline. I don't know which one is my favorite. I must say that I have no ego in this. I do this exercise because I love God and He fascinates me, and He's given us lots of clues. So I just do it as a means to get closer to Him, and it also involves doing Bible research and study, and He, of course, likes that. I have no ego involved with this. If the rapture is tomorrow on a timeline that I was completely unaware of, I would be very happy to go. This is just my interpretation of it, and I'm not saying it is correct, but it is interesting. You have to admit that all these similarities, it is interesting to me. So here we have Revelation 11, verse 11, and it just says, "And after 3 days and a half, the Spirit of life from God entered into them, and they stood upon their feet." So the word days over here is the Strong's word G, 2250. You can see the Strong's lexicon, 2250, and it is the word Hemera. And if you do click on it and you go in and just scroll down a little bit, you will see specifically in relation to this word, it says Eastern usage of this term differs from our Western usage. Any part of a day is counted as a whole day. Hence the expression 3 days and 3 nights does not mean literally 3 whole days, but at least 1 whole day plus part of 2 other days. So we have to adjust our thinking a little bit, always into thinking how they thought, also when they saw the full moon, etc., etc. Okay, over here you can just see the 3rd of November, 4th and 5th November, day 1, 2, 3, and the half day is basically the previous night of the darkness. There's no day there. So any time from 6 o'clock onwards, night time, it just basically shows to me that the 2 witnesses are killed at night. So on the previous timeline, we had the 17th of May as a crucial date and the 6th of June. I like the 17th of May from the previous timeline because in the book of Genesis, the flood came and took them all away on the 17th day of the second month. And there is a reason why in 2026, May the 1st is Nisan the 1st and the 17th May is Nisan 17, and it is the second month, and it's the Mazzaroth calendar, the prophetic or second Passover calendar. But I do suppose that in this time it could be similar but a little bit different, in that May 17th would be the representation where it's similar to Noah's days but not identical, where we go into the ark and then 7 days later is where the two witnesses begin their testimony and a date of a possible rapture. Or it could even be a rapture date, and then 7 days later, the two witnesses begin their testimony. I am unsure. I have a sneaking suspicion that the ultimate timeline is a combination of the second slide you saw and this one. But I am only beginning to work on that now. But I do believe that there is definitely a combination between the two. Okay, so this is the first part of the timeline. I'm not going to go into any detail. I think many people have seen it. It's basically unchanged. Although I will maybe just repeat that this 12 months, 270 days running from this solar eclipse on the 8th of April 2024 that forms part of the trio over here, and it runs to the 3rd of January, I found fascinating because Jesus was 12,270 days old when he was crucified, and I thought that was amazing. And of course we have the 14th of December, which is the Feast of Tabernacles on the Mazzaroth, and from there it runs 10 years to the 14th of December, and of course that is where 5 months, that is where the scorpions begin their 5 months period of stinging the people that ends in May on Israel's birthday. And also from here it runs for 66 prophetic months to the 17th of May 2026, which is of course the second month, and that refers to the book of Genesis where the flood came and took them all away. So basically you can just pause it and have a look at it. You can see there's 8 years and 100 days, and then there's some prophetic months that run. I think I will still try and fit in the bowls, the seals, the bowls, and the trumpets on this at some point. That may be my next little project. Okay, and over here we have a representation of the 2000 completed years. So we have the year 32 AD, and we have April 14, and we have the year 2033, and we have April 14. So at the bottom here, we've just got a representation of the two different calendars. We have the Nisan 15 calendar, which is the heavenly based calendar, and the 2000 years, 2000 completed years is marked by two blood moons, marking the beginning and the end of the time period. This is the Nisan 15 calendar, or the heavenly calendar. And over here we have the Nisan 14 calendar, which is new moon day plus 1 day, and we have and that's the 15th of April then, of course, and then we have the 2000 completed years to April 15. So that would be up to 1 second before, where it becomes 2001 years. So it's completed years. God would complete everything. And the difference between the two, like I've mentioned before, it's just God froze the whole universe, star, moon, earth, everything, stars was frozen or basically placed on pause, but time in heaven wasn't frozen, and that means that heaven gets to the end 1 day before us because we were frozen for a day, so we lag by a day with regards to that. And that is the difference between the Nisan 14 and 15 calendar. And that is why there's a difference between the Synoptic Gospels and the Gospel of John, where they have the Passover on Nisan 15 and Nisan 14, respectively. The one was just referring to the heavenly calendar, and the other one was referring to the earthly calendar, and basically giving us hints as to how to solve that issue. Okay, so yeah, nice representation of the 2000 completed years. Okay, so you've seen the two timelines, and you can make up your own mind. I will be working at a combination of the two. But I think this is all from me. So I just want to thank you for listening. God bless you. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.